So earlier this week, it was announced that Jurassic World has surpassed the Avengers to become the third highest grossing film of all time, which is quite the accomplishment. So, what do you get the studio that has everything to celebrate? Well, Universal decided to gift themselves a sequel, which is now officially set for June 22nd, 2018, which, is kind of a ways off, but I think that's for two reasons. One, Chris Pratt, who is officially set to return for the sequel, is a busy guy. He's currently shooting The Magnificent Seven, he has Passengers coming up with Jennifer Lawrence, and then of course Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And he not only has to shoot all those movies, but then he has to do the publicity tours for them. And because Jurassic World of course wants a summer release date, I think that realistically that's the earliest one they can do with Chris Pratt. By the way, Bryce Dallas Howard is the only other cast member so far officially confirmed to return, but her schedule not quite so busy. I think she could start shooting the sequel tomorrow. So anyway, the other reason I think we have to wait so long for a sequel is that I think that sorting out the storyline for said sequel is going to be a real pain in the butt. I mean, think about it. We're still waiting on those Avatar sequels, and that's the most successful film of all time. And when you think about it, I think that Avatar and Jurassic World find themselves in a similar position. They are franchises where people love the general idea of them, but had quite a few problems with the actual films themselves. And neither franchise wants to embarrass themselves. Look what just happened with the Avengers. I mean, as many of you like to point out in Marvel's defense, it did make over $1 billion, Age of Ultron, but still, it didn't match or surpass the first Avengers film. And franchises are supposed to build. That's the whole reason that they exist. They're supposed to get bigger and stronger and, hopefully better. Not just at the box office, but creatively. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the 5 things that needed to happen in this sequel. We're going to help Colin Trevorrow and company out. Yes, Colin Trevorrow, the director of the first the Jurassic World film, this new phase in the franchise, is going to return. He's not necessarily going to direct, but he will be an executive producer alongside Steven Spielberg, and he will co-script the movie. Now, it's very interesting with Colin Trevorrow. When he was doing publicity for Jurassic World, he made quite a big point of saying, I set up a lot of sequels for you guys. You're welcome. But I think having now seen Jurassic World, I think we'd all be hard-pressed to think of any specific sequels that he has set up. I think the only thing that he really did concretely was put B.D. Wong on that helicopter with a bunch of dinosaur embryos. So he got one step further than Newman from Jurassic Park. But I think in terms of future storylines, he's only really left one potential thread, and it's not even that viable. But we're going to discuss that. All right, so again, this is my list of the top 5 things that need to happen in Jurassic World 2. And I hope that you'll share your own lists for what you'd like to see happen in the comments down below as you listen to my list. All right, so let's get started. Now, the first thing that I think that we need is more Jake Johnson. Now, again, I'm very happy that Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt are returning. I think they're excellent. I think they're a big part of this new mythology that's being built for this, as I said, this wave of the franchise. But I think people shouldn't underestimate what Jake Johnson contributed to Jurassic World. He was hilarious. He was the Michael Pena of Jurassic World. And of course, I'm referencing Michael Pena's very hilarious and endearing turn in Ant-Man, which is currently also playing in theaters. So just like Michael Pena's getting a lot of credit for that film, I'd like to see Jake Johnson get the same credit. And not only was he really funny in the movie, but I think that he kind of represented us, the fanboys and fangirls. He had the action figures, he had the collectible merchandise, in this case the t-shirt. I felt a real kinship with his character. I thought he was awesome. I was like, I would hang out with that guy. So I would like to see much more of him in the sequel, and I think that there's a good chance that we will, because the whole reason he was in Jurassic World in the first place is because he's friends with Colin Trevorrow. He worked on Colin Trevorrow's film Safety Not Guaranteed, which got him the Jurassic World gig. So if Trevorrow is still involved, I imagine he'd look out for Jake Johnson and make sure that he is still involved as well. But I loved him. I definitely want more. Number 2, not only do I want more Jake Johnson, but I want more dinosaurs. In Jurassic World, they kind of went the monster movie route, where they're like, where are the dinos? I don't see them, do you? Oh my god, it's got me! You know, that's what they did in Jaws with great success. And now they're both Steven Spielberg franchises. And it did work, I think, in Jurassic World. I thought that was fun. And, you know, obviously, audiences didn't mind because the movies made an incredible amount of money. But, you know, when they did that in Jaws, it was not a creative choice. It was because the shark wasn't working. The animatronic that they had was broken. So they had to be like, oh, it's off camera. We can't see it. They had to really, you know, sell the idea of the shark instead. Because ideas don't cost anything in terms of visual effects or practical effects. And I think for Jurassic World, maybe it was a budgetary issue, right? Maybe they're like, rendering dinosaurs is expensive, so let's keep them hidden as well. And I have to say, I'm not against synthetic dinosaurs either. I like that this Indominus Rex could turn himself invisible. That was one of the coolest moments in the movie, actually, where I was like, holy crap, that's awesome! And not the kind of dinosaur, trait that you want to see. But I think that in the sequel, they've already done that. In Jurassic World 2, I want more dinosaurs, synthetic or real, and I actually want to see them, and I also want to see the human characters interact with them more. I think that's one of the great things about the first, Jurassic Park film, and I want to see that continued in the sequel. I want to see more human versus dino fights. So that's the second thing. Now, the third thing that I want to see in the film is that the park is closed, which is kind of a shame because I think the idea of a dinosaur theme park is what really sells the Jurassic franchise. I'm just going to call it the Jurassic franchise because they changed the second word, but changes the franchise as a whole. I mean, think about the two movies that succeeded. The one where the park was in, pre-production, just before it was going to be open. It was in the test phase. And then the movie where the park was open. I mean, clearly people relate to that because so many people love theme parks, myself being one of them. So I think it really creates a strong feeling of like, I could be there. This could actually happen to me. And I think both those movies, the first and fourth films in the franchise, did a wonderful job of capitalizing on that. But for better or worse, Jurassic World not only opened the park, but then I think made it unfeasible for any movie going forward. Because after what happens in Jurassic World, how would anyone realistically open another park? I mean, unless maybe they could go the route of like some kind of underground safari, right? Like it's off the books. Nobody knows about it. Or they have to go, maybe it has to become like a really expensive vacation for only like the 1%. And then people won't feel so bad when they get eaten. Like that's the only direction I could see it going in, right? Like the wealthy are like, oh, I don't care. It's a status symbol that I risked my life this weekend on Isla Nublar. I mean, I think that, in terms of like mass consumption for the mainstream, theme park goer, you just couldn't do it. Not only from an insurance standpoint, but, the press, as they had in Jurassic World, found out what happened there. And also all those people, I'm sure, talked and sold their stories to the news. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but when you appear on the news, especially as a guest, like a guest on a talk show, a news talk show, you get paid. So that's one of the reasons that you see, because they have to compete with other news shows to get you as a guest. So that's how they do it. They pay you money. So it's one of the dirty secrets of the news business. And I think sometimes my stories don't go away because there's literally money to be made by everyone involved at every level, including the subject of the news story. But anyway, back to Jurassic World. I just don't think you can have a park anymore, which again, I do think that's a shame as I question whether or not the franchise can succeed without the park. But again, maybe they could go that, super snooty safari route and keep some semblance of a theme park. So my third thing that I want to see, though, is bringing back Joseph Mazzellol, right? And who is Joseph Mazzellol? Well, as you can see, he's the little boy from the first Jurassic franchise film from Jurassic Park. So why him? Well, I think that you want to have the nostalgia factor in here somewhere. Clearly, that helps get audiences interested in this franchise. That's what I think did wonders for Jurassic World, and I think it's what's going to do wonders for a sequel. And of course, I think also Chris Pratt. I think he's a major selling point here. And dinosaurs. But you know what? Dinosaurs were in Jurassic Park 2 and 3, and it didn't help that much. So why is Joseph Mazzellol the only thing they have left in terms of nostalgia? Well, as I said, they can't do a theme park again, right? Also, they can't bring back, unfortunately, John Hammond because Richard Attenborough has passed away. Jeff Goldblum already came back for Jurassic Park 2, didn't work out, and Sam Neill came back for Jurassic Park 3, which also didn't really work out. So Mazzellol's the only one left. And I think that it makes sense to bring back John Hammond's grandson. Why? And he was also really into dinosaurs when we met him, remember? He read Sam Neill's book. He was a really smart little kid. So I don't see why he wouldn't be involved with InGen today, right? I think that, and you can bring him back as a hero, bring him back as a villain. I don't care, just as long as he's a good character. And Mazzellol is a current working actor. That's the other thing that's in his favor. The actress who played the daughter isn't really involved, the granddaughter isn't really involved in Hollywood anymore, but Mazzellol is a working actor. He was in HBO's The Pacific miniseries a couple years ago. He had a guest spot in a couple episodes of Justified on FX. He's on Person of Interest right now. So he's a credible actor, and I think it would be really great to see him come back for the second Jurassic World film. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now what's 5? Well, I think it's the only thread we have left, or the only thread viable to us going forward, and that's the military angle. Now, I understand that this too doesn't seem that feasible because the dinosaurs literally ate the hand that was feeding them, Vincent D'Onofrio, and the rest of them. And Vincent D'Onofrio is no small snack. But I guess the military is going to have to be like, whatever, we're just going to have the pros outweigh the cons. Because I think that they can't go with the park, and they can't bring dinosaurs onto the mainland because they already did that at the end of Jurassic Park 2, right? And it didn't really work out. Also, the whole point of Jurassic World was that humans and dinosaurs can't really coexist, right? That's the whole point of the whole franchise. So how many times are you going to have them have to relearn that? So I think they're going to have to go the military route. I really think that's the only option left to them. And that works because Chris Pratt's character does have a military background and was kind of subcontracted by the military in Jurassic World. So it does work. And Bryce Dallas Howard could either be still there through her corporate roots, or she is, we're going to assume here, dating Chris Pratt's character, romantically involved with him to some degree. So maybe that's how she factors into this. And she's one of the few people to have so much experience with dinosaurs, because she did run Jurassic World, and for some time, successfully, until that fateful day. So I think the military angle works with the characters that are involved, and it's really all that we have left. And I think it does, bring in these other factors that I've mentioned here. I think it's the only path open to us. Now, as far as military movies go, you might think, well, maybe that's a tougher sell, right? A theme park movie seems much more like a family movie. Can a military dinosaur movie really do well at the box office? Well, there are a few war films that have done very well at the box office, and I think if you get it just right, maybe it can work. And I think that, a gritty dinosaur war movie does sound kind of cool, right? I mean, Star Wars is going to try this with Rogue One, their first Star Wars spin-off movie, so why not with the Jurassic franchise? So what are those box office winners for war films? Well, American Sniper obviously did very well at the box office, Saving Private Ryan, and also even Inglourious Basterds, which was a war film that kind of was heightened in a little genre-y, outside of the war genre, obviously, and so I think that's a good sign for Jurassic World 2. So those are the 5 things I'd like to see happen in the sequel. I'm curious how you feel about them and what your own list would be, and just in general, how do you feel about Jurassic World 2 overall? Write your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode, and you can check out some other episodes right now.